We are now fastly approaching the release date for Skyward Sword HD, as it does launch in July 16th of 2021, and we now have new information from Nintendo that has dropped online and made Nintendo fans very upset by the way of a special edition amiibo for this game and having a big feature lock behind it. And in today's video, I want to weigh in my 2 cents on what else we can expect to see in terms of gameplay enhancements for Skyward Sword HD, and whether or not you should still pick up this title, whether you want the amiibo or not. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now guys, as I mentioned, today we are talking about Zelda Skyward Sword and the ongoing controversy that continues to unfold as Nintendo gets closer to the release of this game, as they now have a amiibo that is a limited edition thing that will be released for Skyward Sword HD, and it is a $24.99 amiibo. So first I want to walk through kind of some of the negative aspects of Nintendo doing this, as I am not blind to the fact that Nintendo is a profit-driven company and sometimes they overreach on certain things to grab profit from consumers. And while this may be one of those things, I am seeing a lot of talk online about people just not picking up this game at all because of what Nintendo's doing here. And I really want to encourage everybody on why this is not a end-all be-all feature, and it is more of an easy mode to the game, and the game is already designed to have a lot of fast travel points. So we'll get through all that stuff, but let's first talk about what Nintendo is doing here, as they are obviously pricing this higher than most amiibos have ever been released at, as your average price for an amiibo is between $12.99 and $15.99, and this launching at $24.99 is already a big red flag for a lot of consumers, especially when it has a feature lock behind it. Now, to point out first, obviously it's a beautiful amiibo. It's almost a 2-in-1, you could argue, as the bird is a full-sized figure, and then also Zelda is full-sized as well. So while I haven't seen this thing in person yet, it absolutely looks like a beautiful amiibo for any of the collectors out there. That being said, not everybody is a collector, and if you haven't played through Skyward Sword and you hear something like fast travel mechanic locked behind amiibo, and then you just think that the game is going to be totally unplayable if you don't have that, that's kind of what I want to dive into right now. So first and foremost, Skyward Sword is already an extremely easy Zelda game compared to other 3D Zeldas. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have any kind of challenge to offer, but my recollection of playing the game, which to be fair, this is my least played Zelda game ever, but my personal recollection is that it is rather easy because I was not a fan of the motion controls. I did not play this game as frequently or replay it like I did with other Zelda games, but I do not remember it being too much of a challenge. There was a lot of backtracking at some point in the game, and there's definitely some pacing issues, but we don't know what else Nintendo may announce in terms of gameplay enhancements, and I don't think the fast travel system is the end-all be-all feature that fans are making it out to be. While that doesn't necessarily just excuse Nintendo from probably being really overly greedy here with their aggressive price point, I also think that Zelda fans and consumers should not blow this out of proportion and not pick up Skyward Sword just because of this fast travel feature, as I think as you play through the game, you will find that you have more than enough spots to go ahead and teleport back to Skyloft if you need to for additional items or replenishment. Now, what I will argue is that this will make an already easy 3D Zelda game even easier, because if you were in one specific room in a dungeon and for some reason you get low on hearts or arrows or whatever else you need, you can immediately teleport out of that room and go straight back to Skyloft and come right back from the sounds of what this amiibo will allow us to do. That being said, you're going to have your amiibo sitting right beside you as you continue to play through the game, because obviously it sounds like you're going to have to scan this thing in and out every single time you want to use that feature. So is it really going to save that much more time than running back to a statue that they do have in the dungeons already? Well, yes, it will save some time, but it's not going to be the end-all be-all feature that people are propping this up to be. So that is one very important takeaway to start off with. The other thing I want to talk about is I do think that there's a lot of outrage around this topic, but you know, this is not something too new from what Nintendo has done in the past. You have to keep in mind, Nintendo is at an all-time high in profits and software sales and hardware sales, and while that may be causing them to overreach in certain areas, Nintendo is kind of known for really positioning Amiibo as paid DLC to begin with, and they've always kind of said that. Now granted, this is not additional content that you have to download to the cartridge. It's actually already on the cartridge and activated by the Amiibo. We have seen stuff like hard modes locked behind you know, the Ganondorf amiibo in Twilight Princess, for example, even Wolf Link having the Wolf Link amiibo rather having a actual full-on almost Cave of Ordeal style dungeon locked behind it, and the biggest wallet in the game locked behind that amiibo. Now granted, they did absolutely release a special edition that came with the amiibo, which is what I wish we would have seen for Skyward Sword HD, and while we don't have that on this particular title, it is not something that Nintendo is foreign to over the course of time. And so you have to keep in mind, for all the outrage online and all the voices online that are speaking out that they're saying they're not going to pick up Skyward Sword HD, if you really feel like you can't support this and it is too much for you, that's fine. Go ahead and be on that side. But I want to tell you guys that there are still going to be an entire audience that goes out and enjoys this game for the first time and has really the full exposure to the start of the timeline of Zelda series. And the other big thing I want to point out is, while you could argue that this teleport feature is a quality of life improvement, it is not near as big of a deal as having traditional controls, because if Nintendo would have tried to release this as a $60 port and said, well, you still got to play it with a Joy-Con, and even if you have a Switch Lite, you better buy a Joy-Con and get this to do the motion controls, and you just set down your Switch and look at it while you're swinging around, because that was the only way we could make it work. Well, they could have very easily said that. We've even had developers say about how hard it is to map Wii controls to the Switch, and while I don't know entirely how technical that is, I'm sure there's a lot of tweaking to enemy AI and different things whenever you have to assign actual literal motion controls to a control stick. We also have this game being obviously up-res to HD and running at 60 frames per second, so those are the big features for me. Now, another thing I want to point out is we don't know that Nintendo is done with quality of life improvements at this point, because if you look backwards in time with the Wind Waker HD and with Twilight Princess HD, when they were released on the Wii U, we did not actually fully understand what kind of tweaks were going to be in those games as far as quality of life improvements, like the Swift Sail, the cut down end quest of Wind Waker, and just different various improvements that they made to that title. They didn't really tell us any of that until it was right before release. Same thing with Twilight Princess HD, where we got like a what's new trailer pretty much showing like the Poe Lantern and different things that you could do, hero mode being unlocked out of the gate, and then just all the various tweaks that they made in Twilight Princess HD. We got a full trailer unveiling that as what you would call quality of life improvements right before the game was released. So I still think we see probably what that trailer would entail, maybe at E3, especially if Nintendo does choose to celebrate Zelda's 35th anniversary at E3. Maybe we get another trailer about what's actually fully changing in Skyward Sword HD, because we don't know that this is the only thing, and I want to encourage everybody to look at this as more of a easy mode that is optional, rather than feeling like you have to go get this thing to make the game playable, because I just don't think that's the case. Now, that's just my honest opinion. I know it's going to divide a lot of people and not everybody will see it from my eyes, but then I do want to talk about one thing that we really do have to talk about, and that is more on the negative side of things, and that is the price of this thing can very easily get out of control with the buying environment that we're in right now. Everybody is forced to buy most products online, as stores are not really releasing high demand items on their shelves near as frequently, mainly just for the scalper situation. I mean, Target had to pull off selling in-store Pokemon cards because of people literally being in danger over it. I mean, it's a crazy world out there right now, and unfortunately scalping has become a full-time gig for a lot of people, and it is one of those things that I do not support, but the reality is it's going to happen. So we already have on eBay Skyward Sword HD Amiibo selling for over $55, $65, $75 even. These are people already ordering this because they're afraid of missing out. And while if you really need it at the start of the game's run and you really want to secure it, you can pay that. I think it's ridiculous to pay that much, because Amiibos, we see them around for a long time. I can go through the entire list of most Nintendo Amiibos and still order one myself if I want it for the collection. There's some that are limited run and that don't get very long in the timeline, but I think that we will see this thing continue to be manufactured. So even if you don't get it at the day one launch, don't totally freak out and think that you can never get this Amiibo, as it is something, again, that I think will make the game easier, but is not necessary to actually play through and enjoy Skyward Sword HD. So if you're in the camp that you absolutely want to get this thing day one, and you don't want to risk having to go to a store on launch day, or maybe doing an online order on launch day and trying to get it that way, you may have to end up paying scalper prices if that's worth it to you, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I think Nintendo will continue to supply this amiibo, and it's probably not going to be worth these price tags that people are charging right now, just creating simply fear of missing out on this thing, acting like it'll never be available in circulation. And this is not something that's related to like a chip shortage with the console or anything like that, so I do think that we will see healthy stock of this amiibo all in all. But with all that said, guys, I don't want to sound like I'm just blindly supporting Nintendo, as obviously this is a very for-profit decision that they're doing here, and you're already paying $60 for a game that was originally released at $50. I think that's justified alone due to the 1080p 60 frames per second and traditional controls, and then you got to keep in mind we don't know what other gameplay enhancements are to come, so that's kind of my 2 cents on it right now. But I know that this affects people differently, and if you are an amiibo collector, or if you really do feel like this is a game-breaking feature that we need to have in this game, I want to know your opinions on how you feel about Nintendo and what they're doing here, and if you think that this is something that is worth boycotting and trying to not get the game altogether, or if you're still going to plan on at least picking up the game and you're just not going to support the amiibo sale itself. So please leave me all your thoughts and comments. I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic, because it's a very divisive one, like I said, and I know not everybody will agree with my viewpoint on this, and that's totally fine, but I would love to see where you guys are coming from and what your thoughts are. So make sure you leave a comment on the video down below, and then also hop over to today's community poll, where I will be asking you if you will be picking up this amiibo, or if you're going to, totally not buy the game at all, or if you're going to end up buying both. So please let me know that in the community poll as well, and go ahead and click on the channel icon and then go over to the community tab to cast your vote in today's poll. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out on this video if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.